Hello, Chris here from My Stamp Lady, and I'm so glad you could join me. Today I'm starting a series on embossing, and I'm going to feature it all this week over on my blog at www.mystamplady.com. And I embossed this part, and kind of my feature today is to show the difference. If I would have used early espresso ink over this chevron pattern, what that would look like versus if you emboss it over the same chevron pattern, and how you get so much more pow for that embossing. So let's get started. So I'm going to start out with the crumb cake ink, and this is one of the new pads that was introduced in like 2012 in the 2012 catalog. And if you have one of the new pads, they stay wet longer than the old felt style pads. So we want to, before we emboss, we want to make sure that this is dry, and I also want to make sure that it's not going to pick up other ink. So I'm doing a really full job of putting the powder over it before I stamp it, and I'm just using the embossing buddy to do that. So now I'm going to pull in my my Versamark. I love the Versamark for embossing. It's an ink that stays wet very long and gives me plenty of time to emboss over what I've stamped. And so let's stamp the thanks so much. Pulling in my early espresso embossing powder, and we'll sprinkle that on there, and then we'll tap that off. Now, if you do have some spots that stick, you can take a brush, like a little paintbrush, and brush that off. Just go in there if you have any spots that have stuck. But by using that embossing buddy really helps out a lot. Pulling in my heat tool and letting it warm up. Okay, you want to heat it just until it turns shiny. If you overheat it, you'll lose the shininess and it'll melt back into the paper. Now for this oval image, I'm going to take one of the oval framelits, and I like to use this Post-it tape roll. It works awesome. Lining up my oval here, taping it down, and with my Big Shot, I need to use both of my tabs down. You need both of the tabs for the framelits, one of the acrylic pads, and then the other acrylic pad. So that comes out of the Big Shot, and then it looks like this. Now with the labels framelits, I ran through Primrose Petals, and I already embossed it with the Perfect Polka Dots embossing folder. So I'm just going to mat this. I love, and you've probably already seen many times in my samples, I love the ovals with the labels framelit. They are such a great pair. Okay, so then my next step is I want to put a little flower embellishment there. To do that, I colored with markers. Here's with the Primrose Petals, and we use the brush side and just color the flower portion with this color. Then I'm going to bring in the Old Olive and color the stem. And then you want to make sure you exhale or give a huff breath onto your image to re-moisten all of that ink, because it dries a little quicker than the ink pads. So, and then we'll stamp that. Now, I did cut it out, and just to save some time, I cut it out ahead of time. So just using scissors, I cut it out. My front here. And then I want to highlight the bottom here with a few of the pearls. So let's take those and set those in there. And just kind of space those. Now this is the focal image part here is finished. So what we're going to do next is I'm going to pull in. I took a half of a sheet of crumb cake, 8.5 by 11, and I cut it to 4 1/4 by the 11, scored it at 5.5 inches, and folded that in half. This is a piece of early espresso cut to 4 inches by 5 1/4. This is cut 1/8 inch smaller. Putting down my adhesive. And we'll just mat that on my crumb cake cardstock. Set. I cut out that, stamped 2 of the Primrose Petals flags, and I'm going to show you what I'm going to do to get that to look like it's one banner underneath. I'm going to first of all mount this, and I'm going to use mini glue dots to do that. Dimensionals to do that. Okay, so I've placed my focal piece in the center with the dimensionals, and I want to use this banner to make it look like it is going. And because I use the dimensionals, it's really easy to just slide that underneath and make it line up the top and the bottom. And underneath my focal image there's a gap, obviously, but this way I look like I have the banner going right on through. So I emboss the center, and biggest difference is look at that pop you get rather than using the regular ink and using the embossing powder. And I used 2 of those banners to make it look like one longer banner going through. If you have any questions about what I did here, please contact me at chris@mystamplady.com, and all of the supplies I used today are available in my online store, which you can get to through mystamplady.com. Thanks for watching and have a great day.